Have you ever felt so lost that you didn't know what to do? That's exactly how Melissa felt that day. The owner of a restaurant by the sea, a place she had built with so much effort, now seemed like a sandcastle about to collapse. The economic crisis was devastating the city, driving away tourists and reducing business to almost nothing. If this continues, I'm going to have to close the doors, she thought, as she stared at the sunset on the horizon, searching for strength. But that would not be any ordinary day. Just before locking the door, Melissa noticed a figure standing outside the restaurant. It was a boy, thin and wearing worn clothes, who was looking at her with deep, hungry eyes. He approached slowly and asked quietly, "Miss, do you have anything to eat?" That simple request brought back memories of better days when she and her husband, Robson, distributed food to those in need. But now even that wasn't possible. She hesitated for a moment, went into the restaurant, and searched the cupboards and pantry. Nothing. Not a piece of bread or a forgotten piece of fruit. With a heavy heart, she went back to the boy. "I'm sorry, but I don't have anything to give you today," she said, trying to contain her emotion. He just lowered his head, mumbled "thank you," and walked away slowly. His shoulders slumped. What Melissa didn't know was that that brief interaction would be the beginning of something much bigger. The next day, as she tried to recover from that scene, the restaurant was a little busier, a rare relief lately. Everything seemed to be going on as normal, until she heard shouts coming from outside. "Get that boy!" As she ran out to see what was happening, Melissa saw the same boy, now running away, with a plate of food in his hands. "He stole it!" shouted an outraged customer. But Melissa didn't think twice. "Robson, take care of the restaurant. I'm going after him," she said, determined. As she ran through the streets, one question wouldn't leave her head. Why would he do this? And deep down, Melissa knew that finding the answer would change her life forever. Melissa ran through the narrow, busy streets, trying to keep the boy in her field of vision. He was fast, but her determination was stronger. With each corner she turned, her heart beat faster. It wasn't just fatigue, but a mix of anger and curiosity that drove her. Why would this boy, who seemed so fragile, risk stealing food? Finally, the boy turned into a less busy alley, slowing down. Melissa, trying not to scare him, kept a safe distance. She followed him to an area of the city that few people frequented. A humble community where the houses were simple, some almost falling apart. Melissa felt a tightness in her chest. Is this where he lives? The boy stopped in front of a small house, almost a shack. He looked around quickly before entering. Melissa approached slowly, peering through the half-open door. What she saw made her freeze in place. Inside the house, a thin, pale woman was lying on a bed. Her tired face showed the signs of a debilitating illness. Beside her, the boy opened the bag with the stolen food and began to feed the woman with care and affection. "Come on, Mommy, eat some," he said, rolling spaghetti around his fork and bringing it to her mouth. The woman smiled weakly. "Thank you, my son. It's delicious." The boy responded with a shy smile, but his eyes were full of concern. Melissa, still outside, felt the weight of the scene. All the fatigue she had been carrying because of the restaurant disappeared for a moment. There was a 10-year-old boy, desperate to care for his sick mother. His anger at the theft had turned into empathy, and above all, a sense of responsibility. How could I ignore this? As she thought, a little girl, who couldn't have been more than 5, appeared and lightly grabbed the hem of Melissa's dress. "Young lady, who are you?" she asked, her eyes wide and innocent. Melissa looked at the child and smiled softly. Her presence was noticed by the woman in the bed, who tried to sit up, but it was clear that she didn't have the strength. "Who's there?" the woman asked, her voice weak. Melissa took a deep breath and slowly entered. "Sorry to barge in like this. I'm the owner of the restaurant where your son got the food," she explained, trying not to sound accusatory. The woman looked at the boy, who lowered his head in shame. "Raphael, what you did is wrong," she said with effort. "Mommy, I didn't want you to go hungry. You haven't eaten anything in days," the boy replied, his voice breaking. The woman sighed, running her hand through his hair. "I know, my love, but stealing isn't right." Melissa, touched by the sincerity of the scene, approached. "It's okay. I understand why he did it," she said, trying to reassure them. The little girl, who was still standing next to Melissa, tugged on her hand again. "Have you come to arrest us?" he asked innocently. Melissa knelt down to be at the girl's level. "No, dear. I just wanted to see if you were okay," she replied with a smile. The woman, with tears in her eyes, introduced herself. "My name is Anna. These are my children, Raphael and Maria. I'm sorry for what happened." Melissa shook her head. "Don't worry about it now. You seem to need help." Anna, trying to hold back her tears, replied, "I've been sick for a while. I can't work. My children do what they can to support us." Raphael intervened, with a serious tone that contrasted with his young age. "I've looked for work, but no one wants to hire a child." Melissa felt a pang in her heart. "How old are you, Raphael?" 10, he replied, trying to sound older. "Don't you have any family who can help?" Melissa asked. "We're alone," Anna replied sadly. Melissa looked around. The house was extremely simple, with almost no furniture, and the little food they had was insufficient. The situation was desperate. She stood up and looked at Anna. "I'm going to help you," she said firmly. Raphael, suspicious, asked, "Why would you do this for us?" Melissa answered sincerely, "Because I believe that no one should go through this alone, and because what you did for your mother shows how much of a good son you are." Anna, moved, looked at Melissa with gratitude. "Thank you. I don't even know how to repay you." Melissa held her hand. "Don't worry about it. I'll come back with help. I promise it won't be long." As she left the house, Melissa felt a mixture of sadness and determination. That family needed her. And at that moment, she knew she couldn't just go back to the restaurant and forget what she saw. Something bigger was about to begin. When she arrived at the restaurant, Melissa hurried inside, still processing everything she had witnessed. Robson, who was cleaning the dining room, noticed her worried expression. "Melissa, what happened?" he asked, dropping the cloth and walking towards her. She took a deep breath and began to tell her story. She talked about the boy, his sick mother, and the precarious conditions in which they lived. When she finished, Robson was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. "They need help, Robson, and fast. We can't ignore this," Melissa said, her voice firm but choked with emotion. Robson nodded, holding his wife's hands. "I agree. But where do we start?" Melissa began to list ideas. First, gather enough food to take to the family. Then, contact the family doctor, Dr. Paulo, to assess Anna's health. "Let's act now," she said with determination. The two went to the kitchen and began to organize a basket with basic foods: rice, beans, milk, bread, and fruit. Melissa also set aside some ready-made dishes from the restaurant. Meanwhile, Robson picked up the phone and called Dr. Paulo, quickly explaining the situation. "He can come to the house in a few hours, as soon as he finishes his treatment," Robson said, After ending the call, Melissa nodded. "Great. Let's take the food now and let you know the doctor is on his way." As they left the restaurant with the food basket, Melissa felt a new energy. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was doing something truly meaningful, something that went beyond the difficulties she was facing with the restaurant. When they got to the house, Raphael was the one who opened the door. When he saw Melissa and Robson carrying the basket, his eyes filled with surprise and gratitude. "You're back?" he asked, with a tone that mixed joy and disbelief. "We said we'd be back," Melissa replied with a gentle smile. Inside the house, Anna tried to sit up when she saw them, but Melissa quickly stopped her. "Don't get up. We brought food, and a doctor will be here to see you soon," Melissa said as she placed the basket on the small table. Anna looked at them with tears in her eyes. "This is more than we could have imagined. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart." Maria, the little girl, ran to the basket and grabbed a loaf of bread. "Can we eat it now?" she asked, her eyes shining. "Of course," Melissa replied, helping the girl open the package. While the children ate, Anna watched the scene with silent tears. "I don't know how to thank you for this," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't have to thank me," Robson replied. "We're here to help." Anna asked for a moment to talk in private. Raphael and Maria obediently went outside to play. When the door closed, Anna began to cry. "I pray every night that God will take care of my children. When I can't be here anymore, I think He sent you." Melissa knelt beside her, holding her hands. "We'll take care of you, Anna. Your children need you, and we'll do everything we can to help you recover." Anna looked at her, deep into Melissa's eyes, as if she wanted to believe every word. "Promise me that if anything happens to me, you'll take care of Raphael and Maria. They need good people like you." Melissa felt tears well up, but she kept her composure. "We promise to do everything we can to help them. But you need to be strong, Anna. Your children still need you very much." At that moment, Robson entered the room. "Dr. Paolo is on his way. We should take you to the hospital as soon as he arrives." Anna hesitated, but Melissa reassured her. "We're here now, and we're not going anywhere." As they waited for the doctor, Melissa looked at Robson, and silently they both agreed. Their lives had changed forever. The decision to help that family was just the beginning of a journey they could never have imagined. A little while later, Dr. Paolo arrived. He greeted Melissa and Robson quickly before focusing on Anna, who was visibly weak. After examining her, his expression became serious. "She needs to be taken to the hospital immediately," he said, as he put his instruments in the case. "Her condition is critical, and there's no time to waste." Anna tried to protest, shaking her head. "I don't want to be a burden to anyone," she said, her voice weak. Melissa knelt beside her, holding her hand. "Don't say that, Anna. Your children need you. We're going to the hospital now, and you'll get better." With the help of Robson and Dr. Paolo, Anna was carefully placed in a car. Outside, Raphael and Maria looked on in fear. Maria pulled Melissa's dress. "Is Mommy going to be okay?" she asked, her eyes full of tears. Melissa bent down to the girl's level and held her hands. "The doctors will take care of her, honey. We'll do everything we can to get her home." At the hospital, Anna was immediately taken to the intensive care ward. Melissa and Robson stayed in the waiting room with the children. Raphael sat next to Melissa, holding her hand tightly. "She'll come back, won't she?" he asked, his voice wavering between hope and fear. "The doctors are doing the best they can, Raphael," Melissa replied, stroking his hair. "Now, we need to be strong for her." While they waited for news, Robson suggested something. Why don't we take the children to our house? They need to rest, and we can come back tomorrow to visit her." Raphael hesitated, but Maria, exhausted, nodded. "Okay, but I want to go back to see Mommy," he said, looking directly at Melissa. "We'll come back tomorrow, I promise," she replied, with a comforting smile. At Melissa and Robson's house, the children were impressed by the space and the welcome. Maria, exploring the room that would be hers, smiled for the first time since everything began. "It's so big," she exclaimed, while Raphael watched in silence, still carrying the worry for his mother. While the children slept, Melissa and Robson talked in the kitchen. "Robson, what if—" Melissa began, but her voice faltered. "I know," Robson interrupted, holding her hand. "We'll do whatever it takes, Melissa." The next day, a call from the hospital brought the news they had been dreading. Anna was terminally ill. Her time was short, and she wanted to see Melissa and Robson. When they arrived at the hospital, Anna seemed even more fragile, but there was a serenity in her eyes. She held Melissa and Robson's hands with difficulty. "Thank you for everything, for taking care of my children," she said, her voice barely audible. "I know God put you in our lives for a reason." Melissa tried to hold back her tears. "Anna, you have to be strong. They need you." Anna smiled slightly. "I know my time is running out. I just want you to promise me something." "Anything, Anna," Melissa replied. "Promise me you'll take care of Raphael and Maria. They're all I have." Melissa looked at Robson, and they both nodded. "We promise. They'll be like our own children." Anna smiled one last time before closing her eyes, in peace. A few days later, Anna passed away. The news shook everyone. Raphael and Maria cried deeply, seeking comfort in the arms of Melissa and Robson. On the day of the wake, Raphael placed a flower on his mother's coffin and whispered, "I promise to be strong, Mommy." Melissa and Robson, now responsible for the children, knew that the challenge was just beginning. As they left the cemetery, Melissa looked at Robson and said, "We are a family now, and we will not fail them." The future would be difficult, but in that moment, Melissa and Robson's love and determination gave the siblings something they hadn't had for a long time: hope. After the emotional farewell at the cemetery, Melissa and Robson focused all their energy on creating a new home for Raphael and Maria. The legal process to obtain custody of the children was complicated, but the couple was determined. As they waited for after the bureaucratic procedures, the children were already living with them, starting to adapt to the new routine. Raphael, with his precocious maturity, soon showed himself willing to help. He watched Robson in the restaurant and made a point of being useful. "Can I wash the dishes or help serve?" he asked shyly. Robson smiled and put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "You already do a lot, just by being here, Raphael. Now, it's time to be a child. Leave the work to us." Maria, in turn, spent hours in the kitchen with Melissa, fascinated by the preparation of the dishes. "Can I learn how to make cakes?" she asked, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Melissa, touched by the girl's curiosity, replied, "Of course you can. Let's start with a simple recipe. Who knows, maybe you'll become a chef like me one day." The family time brought new life to the restaurant. Melissa and Robson, previously consumed by the fear of bankruptcy, rediscovered the purpose behind the business, the impact they could have on people's lives. And now, that impact began at home. As the weeks passed, Raphael and Maria began to blossom. Raphael went back to school, and despite the initial difficulties, soon stood out as a dedicated student. Melissa made a point of helping with his homework, and Robson always found time to teach him life lessons. "You're giving us so much," Raphael said, in a moment of honesty. "I want to be like you when I grow up," Melissa replied with a loving smile. "And you will be. You just have to follow your heart." Meanwhile, Maria, with her infectious joy, brought life to the restaurant. Customers loved to see her helping Melissa decorate the cakes or serving with a little apron that Robson had made for her. "When I grow up, I want to be just like Mommy Melissa," the little girl said, filling everyone's hearts with love. Finally, the legal process was over. Melissa and Robson were granted official custody of the children. That day, they decided to have a small celebration at home. "You're now officially part of our family," Robson announced, hugging the children. Maria looked shyly at Melissa. "Can we call you Mommy and Daddy?" Melissa couldn't hold back her tears and replied, "Nothing would make us happier." Life began to take on a new rhythm. The restaurant was thriving again, with Melissa and Robson balancing the challenges of the business with the responsibilities of being parents. Raphael and Maria had not only found a home, but also a new family full of love and purpose. A year after Anna's death, everyone visited the cemetery. Raphael, holding flowers, knelt beside his mother's grave. "Mommy, our new parents are amazing people. You don't have to worry. We're fine," he said, his voice firm. Maria, next to him, clasped her hands in prayer. "We miss you, but we promise to be strong." Melissa and Robson stood a little apart, respecting their siblings' moment. Robson looked at Melissa and said, "Do you think she's proud?" Melissa smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm sure." On the way home, Raphael suggested something special. "Can we make Mommy's pasta recipe? I think she'd like that." Melissa agreed, and everyone gathered in the kitchen, each with their own task. As they cooked, laughed, and shared stories, the feeling of a complete family enveloped them. That night, sitting at the table sharing the pasta, Melissa looked around and thought, maybe in the end, everything happened for a reason. In love, we find the strength to start over. At that same dinner, as everyone shared the special pasta, Melissa felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Looking at Raphael and Maria, who were now laughing and having fun, she realized how fate had transformed their lives in a way she could never have imagined. Raphael wiped his mouth with his napkin and looked at Melissa and Robson with a sincere smile. "Mommy always said that God sends good people to take care of us when we need it most. I think she was right." Maria, with the innocence of her 5 years old, hugged Melissa from the side. "You are the angel that Mommy sent to us." Melissa held the girl's hand, feeling the tears threaten to fall. The weight of responsibility, the fear of not being up to the task, all of that seemed like a distant past now. Instead, all that was left was gratitude. "You are the greatest blessing we have ever received," she replied, her voice breaking. After dinner, while Raphael helped Robson clean the kitchen, Melissa went out onto the balcony with Maria and looked up at the sky. The stars were shining brightly, and the girl pointed. "Mommy is there, isn't she? Taking care of us?" Melissa smiled and replied, "Yes, she is. And I'm sure she's very proud." That night, before going to sleep, Melissa reflected on everything that had happened since the day she saw Raphael stealing food. She thought about how a simple choice, the decision to follow him, had changed not only his life, but hers as well. The restaurant, which had once been just a business, was now a symbol of hope, a bridge to love and connection. As she adjusted Maria's covers, Melissa whispered, "Good night, my angel. Your mommy loves you, and so do we." The next morning, Melissa and Robson decided to share their story with the restaurant's customers and friends, not to receive praise, but to inspire people to see beyond the hardships of everyday life. During a small event at the restaurant, Melissa said, "Often, we are so busy with our own problems that we fail to realize how much we can change someone's life with a simple gesture. A year ago, I followed a boy who stole food, and that changed everything. Today, I want to tell all of you that love and compassion have the power to heal not only others, but ourselves as well." The customers applauded, moved. Many approached the couple to offer their help, asking how they could contribute to other families in need. And so, a new initiative was born at the restaurant: weekly charity meals, where part of the profits went to help those in need. For Melissa and Robson, the transformation never stopped. Raphael and Maria grew up in a loving home, and the restaurant became more than a business. It was a place where stories of hope and new beginnings were written every day. What about you? Have you ever had the chance to change someone's life? Or maybe someone has changed yours? Tell us your story in the comments. Who knows? It might inspire others to do the same. As the screen went dark, a simple sentence appeared: "Because sometimes love and courage start with a small choice." That was the message Melissa wanted to convey: that each of us has the power to make a difference, even in the most difficult times. A year had passed since the day Melissa and Robson met Raphael and Maria, and the family's life had changed completely. The restaurant was thriving like never before, not only because of the quality of the food, but because the charity meal initiative had won the hearts of the community. People came from far away, not only to taste the dishes, but also to be part of something bigger, helping those in need. Raphael, now 11 years old, had become a confident and responsible boy. He helped Melissa and Robson in the restaurant with small tasks, always aware of what he could learn. "When I grow up, I want to open a restaurant like yours, but with free food for those in need," he said one day, as he organized the cutlery. Melissa smiled, thrilled with the boy's maturity. "I'm sure you'll do that, and much more, Raphael." Maria, on the other hand, showed her creative side. She spent hours in the kitchen with Melissa, learning how to decorate cakes and inventing new recipes. Her dream of becoming a chef grew with each passing day. "Mommy, today I want to make a cake shaped like a star," she said excitedly. "A star, huh? I think I know someone who would be very proud of that," Melissa replied, remembering Anna. The family maintained the tradition of visiting Anna's grave on important occasions. On the anniversary of her death, they went together, bringing flowers and a small letter written by Raphael. "Mom, I wanted you to see how well we are doing. Melissa and Robson are taking care of us, like you asked. And I promise to continue being strong, like you always wanted," he said, his voice firm, while Maria held his hand. After a few moments of silence, Robson broke the tension. "Let's honor Anna in the best way we can, by living happily. What do you think about making a special dinner tonight?" Everyone agreed, and when they returned home, the kitchen was filled with laughter and movement. Raphael was cutting vegetables with Robson, while Maria insisted on putting sugar stars on top of a cake she was making with Melissa. When night fell, they sat at the table and shared the meal like a true family. Melissa looked around and felt a deep gratitude. Everything seemed in harmony, and she knew that the love that united everyone there was their greatest strength. Before ending the dinner, Raphael made an impromptu toast. "To Mommy Anna, who brought us here, and to Mommy Melissa and Daddy Robson, who gave us a new life." Everyone toasted with juice, and Maria added, "And to the stars, which always shine to remind us that we are never alone." At that moment, Melissa realized that, despite the difficulties, life had given them a precious gift: the opportunity to love and be loved. At the end of the video, the camera focuses on Melissa, who tells the audience, never underestimate the impact of a small decision. A simple act of kindness can transform lives, just as ours was transformed. And you, who has touched your heart in an unexpected way, share your stories with us. Who knows, maybe they will inspire more people to spread love around the world. Love is not just a feeling, it is an action, a choice, a promise. Thus, the story of Melissa, Robson, Raphael, and Maria becomes a reminder to everyone that, even in the midst of adversity, love can build new beginnings